YouTube viewers can see us now. We're about to go live on Facebook. You ready?
Do it, brother.
All right, let's hit it. I think we're almost live. Yeah, we're almost live. And what's up, Fight fans? Welcome to another episode, not just any other episode, but episode 20 of Stoner versus Stoner, our podcast where we talk about, break down, analyze all the UFC events as well as other MMA and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu events that are happening or on the horizon. Speaking of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I'd like to introduce my co-host, the Jiu-Jitsu champ of ours, Don Stoner. Go ahead and give him your credentials.
What's up, everybody? I'm a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Higa Machado, active competitor on the Jiu-Jitsu scene. Try to compete as much as I can. And I've been training Jiu-Jitsu for close to 20 years now. It's crazy to say, but and a lifelong martial artist and martial arts fan. And then I have my own school too in Washougal, Washington. We have a Jiu-Jitsu academy where we help people learn the art of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
And it is an art as well as a sport. Many people like to break it down as in a very scientific and sport way. But anybody who trains knows that Jiu-Jitsu is very much an art where there's so many different ways to adapt and succeed your previous movements that it becomes original to the role. That's one of my favorite things about Jiu-Jitsu is the fact that when you're rolling with somebody, it's never like a step-by-step thing. I mean, parts of it are, as far as knowing the techniques and such, but it's not like people compare it to chess, but it's not like chess where you have predetermined openings for the game to kind of make it work. Like you have ideas, but the second movement begins, everything is not as you could have ever prepared for, I believe. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's a type of thing where you have to go through the different levels and you have to take time in the beginning levels to develop the basics to kind of set you up so you can train long term, because the dropout rate's really high in jiu-jitsu. So it's just really crucial to understand the basics, understand, kind of get comfortable with the positions before you start rolling and training. But as you keep going, jiu-jitsu is like chocolate or fine wine. It's addictive. And it's the best addiction that there is, brother.
I agree with that. I remember when I started doing judo in high school, the first 3 months of doing judo is just learning how to fall properly because judo's the art of throws. You have to learn how to fall from every angle. So the first 3 months is literally repetitions of falling, which is the least exciting martial art in the world to do for the first 3 months, which has a high quit rate because a lot of people are like, I'm not learning anything. Nobody taught me a judo chop yet. I'm out of here. And there are no judo chops, by the way. And but by the time they leave, they really miss out on the good stuff. Because if you're into clinch fighting, if you're a wrestler, for any of that, you learn so many tools that can be utilized in such an amazing way with judo, where a lot of people aren't prepared to see it coming too. Judo, I mean, now is a little bit more studied, but when I started studying, it was relatively untapped as far as the Western martial arts market, except for fighters like, we had Carl Parisian, who was heavy judo for a while, but there really wasn't a lot of people carrying the judo banner. So it was a fun thing to know and to be able to pull out of your back pocket in a tough situation.
Judo's that's a hard martial art to learn, as far as the pounding that you take. Like you said, I mean, practicing 3 months of falls, I mean, you're already pretty jarred then, and then they just teach you how to throw and teach you basic stances and things like that. And judo is the type of thing. I mean, when I think about judo and MMA, you think about Ronda Rousey. It comes to mind as probably one of the top judo players. There was a guy, Caro Parisian, was a great judo player. One of the best grapplers back in the day, for MMA, and he got to a really high level. But everybody at a Go Course camp in the Valley, Gokor Chivyachin. They're just judo aces, and they were really the only team that practiced it and transferred over to MMA. Um, but it's totally necessary, man. You have to learn how to fall because you will be getting thrown in jujitsu, judo, wrestling.
Well, it's a great way to round out your game too, because a lot of people know what to do from the striking range, the punch and kick range. A lot of people know what to do on the ground. A lot of people know what to do in scramble. But when it comes to the clinch, if you're not in a position to be doing some dirty boxing, a lot of people are kind of dumbfounded as far as what to do next, instead of just separating or leading to a takedown. And judo is the great in between. It's a great equalizer in order to be able to throw your opponent's weight off, to not only be able to score a takedown, but get into an advantageous position post takedown. Because unlike wrestling, where a lot of the takedowns come from straight up the middle, a lot of the judo takedowns are wheel shaped. It circles from the outside or the inside, which leave you in a better position as far as finishing technique, where you're normally finishing side mount, or because it is so entwined with the submission ground game. But enough about martial arts. Let's not get boring. Let's talk about the events that we're supposed to. First of all, we missed UFC 255. That was the last event that we had weighed in on before we went on our holiday hiatus. First of all, if you remember correctly, that was a great card. Did you get a chance to see all the main fights for that one?
Yeah.
Exciting. That was an exciting one. It all started with Mauricio Shogun Rua versus Paul Craig. You had Shogun. I had Paul. Paul won in the second round submission. How do you think the fight went? What's your breakdown of it?
Just overall, a Shogun that is past his prime, trying to compete against a guy who's younger, stronger, better cardio. I wouldn't say a better mixed martial artist as far as techniques. I think Shogun has way more tools in his toolbox, but Shogun just couldn't really use the tools that he has due to those advantages. Just being a guy, fighting a guy who's younger, fighting a guy who's maybe a little hungrier. Shogun had his moments. Shogun's a brawler, but Craig just controlled it on the ground, and he had a great fight. It's hard to see Shogun go down like that because Shogun's a legend in the sport, spanning from his days in Pride legend. And he actually had some of his best fights right when he was signed to the UFC, but now it's just been, he's at the end, man. I don't know what to say. He's at the end. And, I agree with Dana White saying, it's time for Shogun to hang it up.
Yeah. I think I mentioned before the fight where I was stern on the fact that it was pretty obvious that he had lost a lot of the speed off of the tail end of his punches and strikes. He looked good in the opening of the first round. He was connecting. He was moving pretty well, but there is just something kind of that stands out when a fighter kind of goes post peak, and you see just a little bit of the reaction time slip, and the head movement starts to slip. Shogun was a fighter who really utilized being able to stay in the pocket and have those small movements. It really only takes about a 3 to 4 inch movement to get a punch to miss. So he was one of the masters of those in close slips to be able to stand in the pocket and swing with some of the best. But, time takes its toll. I think Dana White said it best. Time is undefeated. As the later you get into your fight career, the more it's just an inevitability. And I think fighting at the level that he's at right now, then yeah, it's definitely not going to work as far as continuing a career. Is it time for him to possibly consider Bellator or maybe PFL, since that's possibly happening next year, if he still really wants to fight? But if his money situations work right, maybe it's time to call it. He had a great, fantastic career. I don't know who they would pair him up with in the division anymore to keep it competitive. They kind of already showed with Nog. like where he kind of stands in that talk, and that's not really a strong spot.
Yeah, no doubt. I don't think that there's any matchups for him at this point, dude. Even in Bellator and in PFL, you're just going to get a lot of young, hungry light heavyweights. And in Shogun, you know, he still has his power, but like you said, he doesn't have those slips. He doesn't have that aggression, that aggression where he could slip in and out and then catch a guy on his back foot, come forward hard. He's lost all that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And the
it's
more
just tough.
damage,
It's tough to watch those types of fights for me, man. It's just really tough to watch. So,
yeah,
a guy like Shogun.
and the more damage to take, the more damage you're susceptible to. And that's the main worry as far as fighters who get into their later age, is that they've already taken all this damage in fights. And it's one of those things where it compounds over time. It's not just something that your body shakes off. It's something that over time affects who you are and who you're becoming. So it's important to catch it early enough to be able to get out of the fight game with your senses and still be able to have a successful life outside of fighting. You know, a lot of these fighters are willing to give it all for their fight career, and that sounds good and plenty when everything's wonderful. But you know, some of us are old enough to remember some of the players' careers after they fought and saw some of the tragedies and horrors of what can happen from full contact sports when it's played past your prime, when it's played past your level of physical competitiveness. So, you know, it's important for fighters to not necessarily be worried about their legacy or be kind of selfish on the money aspect and kind of worry about their health because, you know, Dana White will worry about it for you, but he's won. You know, if you're in Bellator, if you're in one, if you're in the NFL, if you're in other sports, you know, you don't have these people looking out for you that are even worried about you competing past your due date. So,
Yeah, no, and it says a lot for Dana White too to tell these guys, hey, it's time to hang it up. Because if he was a sleazeball promoter just trying to make a buck, he would keep booking Shogun and Little Nog 5 times over because people want to see those fights. But he doesn't want to do it, do it like that. And I think a lot more fighters should listen to him. Like Anderson Silva's not really paying attention to that. Anderson, feels like he could have more fight. Maybe a different case because I feel like Anderson's last fight, he was actually doing pretty good. Whereas Shogun, you could just tell there was a couple steps missing.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
Very sluggish.
I definitely agree that the connection on Anderson Silva's skills were still way closer than Shogun's. I still see that deterioration as well. And it's important to get ahead of it, you know? Like it's important to stay ahead of the injuries as opposed to wait and be reactive to it. So I think in both cases it's a great idea. But no, I do agree. I still think Anderson Silva is a little bit closer to competitive than Shogun Rua is. All right, fight after that, we had Caitlin Chookagian versus Cynthia Calvillo. I had Calvillo. You had Chookagian. You won that one. It was a 3-round decision, grind fest. It looked like Chookagian really just had her number. Utilized her range real well. Dissembled any attempts at takedowns extremely well. Controlled the clinch. Always had an underhook. Really utilized that a hard crossface that really kept Calvillo from really doing anything effective. She outpaced her, she outstrengthed her, she outlengthed her. It was just one of those fights where as much heart as Calvillo has and as much effort and talent that she put into that fight, Chookagian just had her number. What did you see, Don?
Yeah, I just saw clips of that fight. It went the way I thought it was going to go. At the different level, Chookagian, whatever. She's so active right now. I mean, she's had fights back to back in 2020. This might be like her third or fourth fight in 2020. So she's really, she's very active, and she's making she's fixing the holes in her game. Calvillo never really got her Alpha male fighters, it's kind of like the guy with all the tattoos who just fought. Her career is kind of like what's his name, the 145er, Andre Philly.
Okay.
They're not specialists, but they're not well rounded enough that it's like they haven't really taken to one discipline. Where it's like Chunigan, I know she's a good boxer and she has really good jiu-jitsu and she's really a specialist in jiu-jitsu, where Cavillo is like very well-rounded but not really good at anything, like specifically. She's kind of like pretty good at everything. So it's tough for those fighters like that, man. Yeah, it's a tough go, but that fight went the way that I thought it was going to go.
Well, I didn't realize how much bigger Choo Choo was than than Cavillo. She just looked so much longer, and when they stood up next to each other, it was kind of, oh wow, she kind of utilized. If she knows how to utilize this advantage, she really has a good chance of winning the fight. And then once the fight started, it just became more apparent that yep, she knows how to be the tall girl in the fight, and she definitely bullied Cavillo a lot of the fight. So it was a good one to watch. It didn't go the way I was hoping it would, but it was still a great fight. Fight after that, we had Tim Means versus Mike Perry, a fight that was hyped for all the wrong reasons. Mike Perry missed weight, still had his girlfriend in the corner, or wife, or fiance, baby mama, whatever you want to call it, as well as his best friend, who might be the father of the child. No, I'm just joking. Just joking. Versus Tim Means, a very well-trained, well-camped, and well-prepared and disciplined fighter. I think we really saw the difference of having a disciplined camp and being prepared for a fight versus Mike Perry. What did you see when you watched that fight, Don?
Yeah, again, I called Means on this fight. They have a similar pace. Mm-hmm. You saw that the whole fight. It's a fast pace. Both Tim Means and Mike Perry got in each other's face. They were swinging for the fences. Tim Means is just a little more polished than Mike Perry. And just that little more, just that little level of game planning made the difference. Mike Perry is like one of these guys where, he's going to have, hopefully not, but probably like 5 baby mamas. He's going to buy a mansion when he's making, a couple $100,000. Like the guy his whole life, it seems like this kind of train wreck that you want to watch. And he fights the same way. And I kind of was like, maybe this is going to work for him. But at this point, he's more, to me, like a brawler, gatekeeper type of guy. He has to get with a good camp, and he has to humble himself and say, hey, he needs better sparring partners. He needs a head coach, a head coach like the head coaches that they have at American Top Team in Florida and all these different super teams. He just needs to find a guy that he trusts and that he can mesh with long-term to get the results, because it's almost impossible at the high level that this game is for you to have your girlfriend as your corner person. And I mean, you won the bet. You said that he was going to miss weight. That was the big question, right?
Yeah.
He's just all mixed up in that fight.
You can't have pizza with ranch within 10 days before a fight. I'm pretty sure that's just not in the books as far as making weight. You're just not going to do it.
It's a great meal, though. It's a great meal.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. And then he snuck a drumstick in, too, right after that meal on his if you follow his Instagram stories. Man, he was really going for it. He was living his best life. But it caught up to him. As far as the fight goes, Tim Means really had an amazing game plan to not only just beat him, but to leave no doubt in anybody's mind that he would beat him every time, because he utilized the leg kick. He did a lot of great footwork to keep Mike Perry at a distance. He knows Perry can sometimes switch his feet up and cover a lot of ground, so he kept an outside shading on his foot, made sure that he always beat him to the step. He worked his body a lot in the first couple rounds, and that paid dividends. In the third round, he decided to fight Mike Perry the way Mike Perry fights. He took on Mike Perry, going toe-to-toe in the third round, much despite his coach's recommendations. They were telling him to keep fighting an outside fight. And I think he wanted to kind of prove a point that, like, no, I'm not only am I the more disciplined and more prepared fighter, but I'm the better fighter. And he stepped up to Mike Perry and fought him in the pocket. They exchanged a couple of really good combos. And because of those body shots, Mike Perry was landing with some of those combos, but they didn't have that sting or effectiveness because he was probably still reaching for his, I shouldn't have had that pizza. You know, all those sins that you commit on your journey to the ring are paid in some way. If you don't pay it in the weight cut, you will pay it in the ring. That's how it affects you as a human being. There's no way that you can allow yourself that type of luxury without expecting the pendulum to swing equally in the side of pain if that's your sport. So he fell victim to himself. I think Mike Perry might have possibly been able to win that fight had he come in better nutrition and better trained. But Tim Means should serve as like a bizarro twin to Mike Perry, or like a mirror to himself, where he's like, damn, that's what I would look like if I had some good coaches and some good nutrition. But we'll see if he takes the lesson. You know, what we've seen in the past, probably not. He's a 50-50 fighter in the UFC. His record is a little bit better than that, but his UFC octagon record is 50-50. So if he stops being entertaining, what happens when people get sick of him? Dana White will give him the boot if he's losing fights and not moving the needle. The fact that he's still pushing the needle is the only reason I think he's still in. You know, you can't miss weight like that and be as disrespectful as he's been about it without repercussion other than, you know, the 30-40% pay cut. Yeah.
And now they're talking about too, it's like if you penalize them for, you know, missing weight at 20%, you know, a certain percentage of people will say, hey, screw it, I'm not going to make weight. You do it 30, 40, 50, 60, 70%, and now they're like taking it a lot more serious, right? But you have these guys that are just chronic weight, that miss weight. And I don't know if Mike Perry, how many times he's missed weight, but maybe you should penalize him more.
3 now.
3? Yeah. So, you know, penalize the guy more. Maybe the first time they miss it 20, second 30, you know, the third time 40 or 50.
Taking one step further, if you don't make weight, the best you can do is get a no contest. Take away their potential victory. You'll have way more fighters making weight at that point. At that point, if you're like, hey, you missed weight by 3 pounds, you're no longer fighting for a win. If you lose the fight, you get an L. If you win the fight, you both get a no contest. That's the fairest way to do it, because if you didn't make weight, you're not fighting 171 or whatever weight class you're fighting at, which means that you're not legitimate. You know, you can't make it a catch weight fight if the other fighter is not fighting at the catch weight. That's cheating. That's cheating in another direction. Yeah, it's only a few pounds, but like I said, it's that suffering. It's the fact that Tim Means was willing to suffer that piece of pizza out. And when it comes to the penalties, it's actually up to the state commission. I believe it's Nevada State Commission that sets the regulation board on that. So who knows who's going to be able to change the rules? I feel like they should have done it a long time ago, but there's a lot of things they should have changed for a long time. So it's just added to the list next to the way we score things and the way instant replay is utilized, and what else? There's the weed, pissing hot for weed. Nico Price is now suspended for weed again. You know, just throw it in the bucket. It's just another thing to change in the future. See, after that, we had a great fight between Valentina Shevchenko and Jennifer Maia. Not Valentina's best work. She did look a little slow off the step. Her combinations looked sharp, but she looked like she wasn't really pushing a lot of strength behind it. Jennifer Maia took advantage of it around the second round, was able to get a takedown and keep her in an advantageous position for a little bit. But that was about where she peaked. After that, Shevchenko really put the pieces to her. By the fourth round, was able to finish the fight. Don, what'd you think of that fight?
Uh, like you said, Shevchenko didn't look as dominant as we expected. Was that because Maya was so strong and Maya was able to take her shots and make the adjustments? I think that was part of it. Um, but Shevchenko didn't look as sharp as she had. But Maya did have some great moments, like you said. She took over one, if not two, of those rounds. She had a good sequence in the fight where she was doing cage control. She had Valentina put up against the cage, and then she took her down. But she didn't. She didn't do it again. Her corner was, pleading with her, take the fight to the floor. You have an advantage there. And she wasn't able to get Valentina down the same way. But I think if she would have just kept Valentina against the cage, done more cage control, she could have maybe taken that fight, maybe wore down Valentina in those early rounds with some cage control, because she has really, really good cage control, dirty boxing on the inside. But just the way that she was pummeling off the cage was very, very impressive. She looked very strong. And Valentina is normally pretty strong too. She does a great job against strong fighters. She can circle out. She couldn't get off the cage with Maya. So I'll take the L on that one.
Well, a respectful one. Jennifer Maya did not look like a 330 underdog in that fight. She fought her heart out, did a great job. Valentina Shevchenko also mentioned that she had MCL surgery in her time off, and that she'd been recovering from that. It was a minor surgery. So she blamed that. She didn't necessarily blame that, but she said that was the reason why she didn't come out with an immediately high pace like she normally does. She was making sure that her knee was functioning well and everything. But yeah, Jennifer Maya really had a good strategy as far as how to get dominance in the fight. Like you said, if she was able to keep the stamina to follow through. But I imagine Valentina Shevchenko is a really hard person to keep air against. Kind of similar to Khabib, where you saw Justin Gaethje. He had some success in that first round, but man, he looked exhausted trying to implement the game plan. I think the same thing happened to Jennifer Maya, where she looked great in that round, but she really put everything she had into just kind of being competitive in the ring with her. And then once the later rounds came, Valentina did turn up the temperature on her and really started laying some leather on her and looking good. So yeah, it was a better fight than I was assuming. I was expecting her to kind of railroad Jennifer Maya, to be completely honest, and I was wrong on that for sure. Speaking of railroading, Davison Figueiredo against Alex Perez, huh?
Oh man,
not much to talk about with this fight. It was just a couple of swings, a scramble, and a guillotine. I mean, anything you want to say? Anything you can say to break it down?
man, tough fight for Alex Perez, man. You know, going into that fight, I feel like there's only a few ways for him to win. One of which was going to be kicking out the legs. He has a really good low calf kick.
Mm-hmm.
So if he would have implemented his low calf kick and broke Figueiredo down, but Figueiredo got kicked a couple times, but just kept pressuring him so hard that Alex Perez had to shoot in for the takedown. The guillotine that Figueiredo landed was textbook guillotine. Absolutely beautiful guillotine. One of my favorites in the arsenal of guillotines. Super hard to get out of. At that point, the only thing that you can really do to get out of that guillotine is, well, for one, before the guy pulls guard, you have to escape out of the legs. So he just has your neck, so you can scramble with just the connection between, with his arms and your neck.
And you have to clear both. You have to clear both legs too, right? You can't just clear one, because they can still finish it from a half guard.
They could. I mean, I'll take the half guard all day. I mean, if they want to do half guard, but really, a lot of times you have to clear both legs for sure. because even in the half guard, they can cinch it back and get back to close guard too. There's so many different options from there, and Figueiredo knows them all. That's his move, and guillotines are coming back. I want to see guillotines more, because now people were so focused on the leg lock game, leg entanglements, that they forgot about, the choke. So, hey, Figueiredo's up there with the top guillotine guys in the UFC for sure. I don't see who can take out Figueiredo. The division's pretty shallow. The guys in the top 10 they've lost a few fights and they have like one win, and now they're in the top 10. The division is just shallow, right? The division's just, we're still talking about the time when Dana White wanted to do away with the 125ers. So it's still at that point of rebuilding. It's almost like some of the women's divisions right now.
Yeah, I agree. It is kind of it's almost like the second place circle, where the people who couldn't make it at the weight class above kind of circulate kind of down there. But, with the return of TJ Dillashaw, if he's able to lose weight without IPOs, then maybe the division would be extremely exciting again, because who knows which weight class he's going to attack for first. I think it's really kind of an open season for him, because he's already talking about, on his return, expecting a title shot pretty much right off the bat too. So we have that.
And a lot of the guys are, but I mean, the thing is, people forget about TJ Dillashaw. People forget about some of these champions after their IPO use or after their whatever happened in their career. The UFC is moving so fast right now that I don't think TJ can make 125. I think he's more of a 35 or 45er at this point. But if he can make it, I mean, man, he's not going to have any fat on his body. He's going to be sucked down at 125, because he carries a lot of muscle. Mm-hmm. He doesn't carry too much body fat. That's a tough weight cut.
Yeah, we saw what that looked like. He's scary looking, very scary looking. But who knows? There's going to be some shifting going on regardless from the weight class above too. So who knows what the future holds? Deiveson Figueiredo doesn't look like he's going to be shifting from that champion spot anytime soon. Let's go ahead and fly through the UFC fight night of Smith versus Clark, because, well, let's be honest, we didn't expect half of these fights that were on the main card to be on the main card. We were expecting to see Curtis Blades and Derek Lewis. What was the other fight that we were expecting to see? The big one that got canceled. Two main fights got canceled. I can't remember the other one. But we got a card that we weren't expecting to see half of the fights that were on the main card. Because of all the changes of November, I'm willing to just call November a push as far as our records go. You cool with that, Don?
If I have a losing record, I'll call it.
Yeah, you do.
You do. I do.
But, you didn't get the proper chance to catch up with this last event. So we'll go ahead and call it a watch, and we'll fight for December. So the first fight was Jonathan Pierce versus my Hawaii fighter, Kai Boy, who unfortunately got knocked out by Jonathan Pierce in the second round. Towards the end of it. Great fight. Unfortunately, Kai Boy looked like he ran out of stamina. He was getting hit pretty hard early in the second round, so I think that really attributed to his cardio dropping. And he just got beat in the second round by a talented striker. Nothing wrong with that.
He had a great first round, though. Round.
Looked really good in the first round. Might have burnt a little bit too much of that gas in the first round, though. Also, a lot of people didn't get a chance to see these fights, especially if they were streaming them from a less than legal source, due to the fact that the Tyson fight was also being streamed from most of the same providers. So if you don't have ESPN Plus, ESPN, you didn't see this fight. There's no way. The internet bandwidth was just freaking out. The internet gods were not having it. By the way, let's talk about the Tyson fight real quick. You saw that, right?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I thought Tyson looked great, man. Tyson looked really, 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 powerful, sharp, fast. in shape, hitting the angles like he used to, the head bob, coming in with his hooks every time. Roy Jones just grabbed him every time because he didn't want to get KO'd.
Yeah.
But Tyson looked great, man. He looked very, very impressive. And, I think a lot of people, Dana White was saying that too. It's like, he didn't want to see this fight, but Tyson looked great.
Yeah. Tyson definitely looked really good. His body shots were really landing with a lot of authority. Although I could notice that his headshots weren't landing with the same type of power as his body shots were. Gives me cause to believe maybe he's having some rotator cuff issues, maybe some of that ligament up there. Hey, you're 56 in boxing, you're going to have some wear and tear. But man, was he still able to generate a lot of power for those nice low body shots. That doesn't take much shoulder at all. So he was able to really just cut into those. And Roy Jones Jr. said it best. It's like, man, everywhere he hits you, it hurts. He hits you in the body, hits you in the arms. It doesn't matter where he touches you. It hurts every time. So, Tyson looked great. I enjoy the fact that a lot of people didn't understand that it was an exhibition match and what that means. I enjoyed watching the look of disappointment on people's face going like, wait, so who won? What do we do now? It's like, no. You just watch them spar just to watch them, just watch them fight. Like, what? What do you mean? Why did I bet on this? I'm like, why did you bet on this? Like, you obviously didn't read the rules.
Well, Roy Jones just kept grabbing him every time, clinching every time, grabbing, clinching. The best points of the fight, the most exciting thing for me was to just see Roy Jones when he's outside slipping, hitting the angles. He would move out of the way. Tyson would come in, but then Roy Jones would clinch him again. Mm-hmm. They'd break it up. You'd see Roy Jones slip and everything, and that was really cool. But Roy Jones wanted an exhibition just to make the money. Mike Tyson wanted to knock somebody's head off. And that was pretty badass to see. You
could definitely see the difference of intention. But Roy Jones did throw a couple of flare jabs that really looked signature. His style of being able to stick and move. He threw some good shots in the earlier rounds, but you could tell those body shots, man, they just dug in on him, and all he was doing was just hanging on and trying to ride the bull for the full 8 rounds. Kudos to him. That's not an easy thing.
But I don't want to see, a new senior citizens heavyweight league. I don't want to see now. Holyfield wants to fight. Not Riddick Bowe. The other guy that Lennox Lewis wants to get in on the mix. So all these guys want fights with Tyson because they're like, hey, I'll take $1 million to do an exhibition. That's not what I want to see, partly because I don't want to see Tyson go out.
Yeah.
I kind of want to see Tyson just kind of finish out like this.
Yeah, I would hate to see this become a cash grab. But, if it does become one, that's the punishment. That's the punishment of taking the check. So hopefully it doesn't become that. I would hate to see him fighting that often.
And the fights before that was just trash. YouTube, yeah. Jake Paul. Fighting a basketball guy. What was that? What was that?
And poor Nate Robinson is a meme now. So, rest in peace to his social network career. So, anyways, back to the fight night. Let's get back to what we came here to do. Ashley Evans Smith fought Norma Dumont, who was able to pull out the victory over her in 3 rounds. A lot of people thought that was going to be a closer fight as far as the judges' scoring than it was. Norma Dumont was able to secure some takedowns in the second round, keep her position pretty heavily on her. The first round was debatable, could have gone either way. Some good scrambles, some good takedown defenses, but the third round was all Norma. She was able to really secure good position. Even though she didn't secure the takedown, she got a takedown that stood back up. She really held the cage control, really dictated where the striking went. The clinch was all hers. She just kind of really poured it on her in the third round. Did you get a chance to catch that one?
Yeah, Ashley Smith, she's never evolved her game. She keeps her head up really high when she throws, and she's a little taller. Mm-hmm. So she gets hit a lot, just lack of head movement and keeping her head so tall. She takes kind of a like an old school boxing stance, but she has no head movement. So it kind of just looks like a old brawl. It looked like a brawl every time you see her get hit, because every time she gets hit, her whole body goes. She has no head movement. She's not fluid enough. She's not staying low enough. She's not um, threatening with other things like takedowns. So yeah, Norma just dominated her basically.
Yeah, she was able to really just get good position on her pretty much throughout the entire fight. Oh, one thing I did forget to say about the Tyson fight. In the first round and a half, I don't know if you noticed this, but Tyson had happy hands. Did you see that?
I did not.
If you go back and watch the fight in the first couple rounds, he had a little extra shake going on in his hands. So he did look a little amateur in that sense, just in the fact that you could tell that he was a little overexcited. But that was one thing I saw and I was like, no, what?
Well, you shake the dust off, but there's experts saying that Tyson could fight the top heavyweight fighters current. He's just going to get hurt.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see him like maybe in some like special matches with like Rampage or something. That'd be kind of cool, like some MMA fighters.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to see a Tyson versus Tyson Fury fight. That would just ruin everybody's view on Tyson's legacy. That would just kind of put the spike in it. Speaking of putting the spike in it, let's talk about the next fight: Spike Carlyle and Bill Algeo. I thought Spike Carlyle had Bill's number, but I was totally wrong, man. Bill Algeo really pushed the pace on him. I don't know if I fully agree with the judges' scorecards on this. Did you see that it was unanimous, 27-30 across the board?
Yeah, I didn't really catch that one.
I think the right fighter won the fight. However, I feel like the scorecards didn't reflect the fight that took place. These judges are out of control, man. That fight being a 30-27 is just not right. All across the board for three judges. Like, I think Spike at least earned one of the rounds, at least from one judge. First round, he really, really poured it on. But, he kind of ran out of steam from doing that. It was a good fight. It was a high-paced fight. There was a lot of interesting techniques being thrown, as normally in a Spike Carlyle fight. There's a couple spins, interesting angles of attack, but just wasn't Spike's night, if you ask me. It looks like the gods really didn't want him to win that one. As well as if you like spinning strikes, the Josh Parisian versus Parker Porter fight was awesome. I believe I saw Parisian throw two different spinning back fists in that fight, one in the first round, one in the third round. Both of them landed. And first of all, these guys, for heavyweights, were really throwing big lumber early in the fight. Did you see how exciting that first round was?
Yeah, they got after it, man.
Crazy. You normally don't see heavyweights fight like this. It kind of reminded me of like an Anthony Pettis fight or something, the way they decided to go at it. A lot of interesting angle techniques, a lot of strikes that were thrown by big boys that normally aren't thrown by big boys. But I think that really attributed to why both of them were kind of out of gas by the third round. Porter looked like he had the edge just a little bit more going in the third round, and I think that's really what kind of cemented his victory in it. Anything stand out for you in that fight?
It was a high-paced heavyweight fight. I need to see both those guys more to kind of really understand their games. But it was a good fight. It went to Parisian, right?
Yeah, no, it went to Porter.
Okay.
Yeah, these were a couple of the fights that got bumped up or due to the fact that a couple of the main card fights were non-existent. So, yeah, these guys weren't originally, excuse me, supposed to be in that main card spot. They were a prelim fight, but I think they really stepped up the pace as far as what we were expecting from them. So hats off to them. I can't wait to see them fight. Their next fight's coming up. We had Miguel Baeza versus Takashi Sato. I unfortunately missed this fight. My connection was awful. Did you catch the fight?
No, same here. Missed that one.
Man, the Tyson fight really just took all the bandwidth out of.
Oh, actually, I did see that fight. Baeza is an absolute hoss, man.
Yeah.
Beza, he could be a definite prospect.
Okay.
And I see why they put him on this card. He's very, very technical. He's a jiu-jitsu black belt, but his stand-up is very sharp. And Sato was kind of a boxer, so a lot of the fight took place standing up, and then Beza was able to finish him on the ground. Um, if I'm not mistaken, there he got a submission.
Mhm.
But Beza is the real deal. We need to look out. Keep your eye on Miguel Beza, because I think this is a guy who maybe doesn't have the height behind him, but can do big things in the UFC. Um,
Nice.
Super well rounded. And he just picked apart Sato on the feet, and then just took him out on the ground. Great fight.
You know I enjoy rising talent with momentum. And Takashi Sato's no slouch either. He's a great fighter. The fact that he's able to put it on him says a lot. You know, I wouldn't put him in the top 15 or anything, but I would definitely say that he's got skills. And in the final fight of the night, we had Anthony Smith versus Devin Clark, which didn't last very long at all. Um, you know, Anthony Smith really chose how he wanted to win this fight. Um, his grappling was just so superior. The fact that he scooted him from the edge of the cage all the way to the center of the ring without any real resistance just really just showed how much dominance he really had inside the cage the second it got to the ground. Clark threw one opening shot that was talented and sharp, but Smith took it to the ground immediately, and he made it a very, very quick night. What did you see?
Smith just looked very calm, composed. He showed that he's a veteran, and Clark looked very like he had an adrenaline dump. He rushed out, and he just wasn't really thinking when he was fighting. You could tell Anthony Smith slowed it down, and when Anthony Smith got his guard, he really took the time to set it up, grab the wrist, pass over the triangle. And I think Devin Clark can do better. But it was just one of those things where he got bumped up to the main event, and he had one great fight against Alonzo Menefeld. He beat a top prospect in Alonzo, so he got this bump up with Anthony Smith, but it was just too soon. He needs more time. He needs a couple more fights. I think this is going to be a wake-up call for Devin Clark, because he is very talented. He has all of the skills needed to be a top contender in the light heavyweight division, but the nerves got to him, and he just rushed it. He rushed it. And it could be, and Anthony, like you said, he just played into Anthony Smith's game. Anthony Smith is like, okay, you can be on top of me. I'll triangle you easily.
Yeah,
He just let him rush. He let him rush, and then it was really like kind of a real martial arts game plan of just taking the force and turning it against the guy, and taking the guy's weaknesses and capitalizing on it.
well, that's exactly how a fight with somebody who's in the top 5 versus an unranked opponent should look like. That's just what it's supposed to look like when you have people of that different skill levels supposedly fighting. And Anthony Smith said something great in his post interview. He's like, "Look, I'm not as proud of this victory as I would be of many. Yeah, I beat the guy, and that's what I was supposed to do. That's my job. But if I didn't beat the guy, just know that I would have had a problem. Like Dana White probably would have cut me. This wasn't just a potential call-up fight for Devin Clark. This was a sink or swim fight for Anthony Smith. So he was very well aware of that as well. So I think with him showing that, I'm sorry. I think with him showing that type of patience, with that type of pressure on his shoulders, really shows a lot of what's to come from him. I think we might be seeing a nice resurgence from him pretty soon after coming back with a W. Yeah. So
You certainly hope so. I mean, Anthony Smith has taken some hard losses, against Glover. he's had some wins. He beat Shogun. Shogun was really the fight that got him to the level where he's now fighting. And then he had that big win against maybe it was Rashad. He's had a few big wins, but they were against veterans. But at the top level, against like a Glover or Alex Raddick, who took him out, um, he just hasn't been able to perform. You know, um, I don't know. It's tough to say. I don't see Anthony Smith evolving that much. I don't see his game evolving. I see him kind of resting on his skills. I mean, do you see anything different from Anthony Smith than what you?
Um, to be honest, I haven't seen Anthony successful in a while. So he even said something about it where it's like he forgot what it felt like to win, and I almost forgot what it looked like when Anthony Smith won. Um, you know, I think he had a lot of great tools on his first climb. I think he was just a little young. I think some more ring time will really do him some good in his evolution. Um, I don't think there's anything wrong with the skills other than the fact that he just wasn't fully developed yet. He got a climb shot real early, real early. I mean, kid's young. So I don't think we've seen the best of him yet. Do I see him evolving much from his current style? Probably not. But what's broken? His striking's pretty solid. His grappling's pretty good. His clinch fighting's pretty decent. He just fought some monsters. I mean, Glover Teixeira is a monster right now. The fact that he was able to put it on Thiago Santos only double underlines the fact that Glover Teixeira is a monster. The guy's a beast. He hits with just that stepdad authority. You know what I mean? Just that older man strength. The guy that's been swinging a hammer for 25 plus years that shakes your hand and hurts your pinky. He's one of those dudes. You know what I mean? So there's no shame in getting your face broken by Glover Teixeira. And, when John Jones makes you look like a bad fighter, that's because he's John Jones. And he makes great fighters look terrible. So as far as Anthony Smith is what he needs to change, I think he really just needs to kind of continue his development. So, but no, you do make a good point. I really don't see him changing too many things in his program, which may ultimately plateau him. That's a good point. Yeah. So it's to be seen. Who knows? The UFC's ranking system has been playing tricks on everybody. So there's nothing to set your watch to, especially some of these main events coming up. Because this next main event for the fight night was originally supposed to be Jack Hermansson versus Kevin Holland. But due to a COVID scare and timing changes, we've had a bit of a rotation. So we got Marvin Vettori is fighting Jack Hermansson this week. And the next week, we have Kevin Holland fighting Jacare Souza. So what that tells me is that both of these fighters traded up. Do you notice that? Both of them traded up for higher ranking and more notorious opponents simply by waiting it out. Smart move on both their parts. I mean, both of them are great fighters and still very capable of winning those fights respectively. But they're both getting a much bigger mouthful than they would have with each other possibly. Because Kevin Holland's on the climb, Martin Vettori's on the climb. Jacare Souza is already very well established. Jack Hermansson already well established. These fighters, instead of competing for being the next established fighter in the weight class, get to potentially both move up. So it's a win-win for them.
A win-win, but at the same time, I look at between those two main events, the main stick-out fighter from those four fighters is Jacare Souza. Jacare lost to Jack Hermansson, which I was not expecting. Jacare, I've always wanted to see Jacare get his title shot and get his fair due because he's beat the best of the best. And he's always been one fight away from the title. Jack Hermansson stole that from him, beat Jacare. But Jacare, I mean, who can beat Jacare? I mean, few guys can beat Jacare Souza. And I don't think Kevin Holland is the guy to do it. Kevin Holland is on a tear right now. He's been doing great. but his main skill is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And that's Jacare's bread and butter. I mean, Jacare's the best, if not one of the best. He's the best. You could talk about Damian Maia being the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter in MMA. You could talk about Jacare Souza. Who else? I mean, that's pretty much it. Fabricio Verdum. But yeah, so looking at Jacare and looking at Jack, I don't think Kevin Holland's going to beat Jacare, and I don't think that Marvin Vettori is going to beat Hermansson. Marvin Vettori has a better chance at beating Hermansson than Holland has at beating Jacare. But it's going to be tough because, I mean, both of those fights, man, I think are going to Hermansson and Jacare all day. I'll bet on those.
The one thing the switch does have to benefit the lesser fighters, in our opinion, is the fact that their fight, like Kevin Holland could not fight Jacare Souza under better circumstances. 2 weeks notice. Souza doesn't have time to formulate too much of a game plan against him. So Kevin Holland could be implementing a similar game plan because Vettori is a pretty strong jiu-jitsu player in himself. So that might play to his benefit. Who knows where Jacare's health is at? You know, we don't know how much time he's had to prepare a camp to get ready for a fight. Meanwhile, when it comes to Hermansson, we don't know how strict he is to a camp plan, because maybe his camp had a plan for Kevin Holland, and the way that you would fight Kevin Holland is not the same way that you would fight Vettori. So I think, yes, they are fighting fighters that are better than them and that on most days will put their lights out. However, when it comes to fighting these fighters, I think they're fighting them under the best circumstances for an upset. So, you know, if they lose the fight, they can just blame the fact that they only had 2 weeks to prepare for, respectively, Jack Hermansson and Jacare, which, you know, is a legitimate argument to be like, yeah, okay, well, you know, let's still move you forward in the rankings. So
I'm going to go with Jack Hermansson via sub on Marvin Vettori, and I'm going to go with Jacare via TKO against Kevin Holland.
That one's not until UFC 256, so we'll hold on to that one. That's next.
You already have my pick.
Yeah, okay. but you got Jack Hermansson. We'll try to remember this, but you got Jack Hermansson winning by sub, second round of Vettori. I'm going to agree with you. I'm not going to take Vettori in this fight. Jack Hermansson is an animal. We saw that against Jacare. Why would I take him? Absolutely taking Hermansson in this fight. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate when I say these things about what benefits Vettori and Holland have. If I'm a betting man, and Vegas will agree, because I'm pretty sure the last time I checked the over-under was 250, 270. That's pretty not good for Vettori. The numbers don't lie. Hermansson's going to win that fight. Before that fight, we have OSP, Open St. Prude, versus Jamala Hill, who had an impressive knockout victory in his last fight. He's on a 7-fight win streak, 3 in the UFC, all very powerful knockouts. What do you think could possibly happen in that fight?
Tough fight to call. I've seen Jamal's fights, but I'm just an OSP fan through and through. You know, Jamal Hill came up on the Contender Series, had 2 wins in the UFC in 2020, where OSP, I think, lost his only fight in 2020. He actually lost one fight against Ben Rothwell, and then he beat Alonzo Menefeld by knockout punch. I'm going to go with my boy OSP. He's fought better opposition. I think he's a veteran of the game. I don't see what Jamal Hill can do. Just because OSP knows how to handle a variety of different, you know, power punchers, grapplers, wrestlers. OSP and his camp have the answer. So I'm going to go with OSP on that one by sub in round 3.
I got to be honest with you. I would take OSP in the first round of this one. I think that he is going to take the fight to the ground really early. and I don't think we've seen Jamal Hill do anything extremely talented off the ground. And OSP, I mean, he's got a choke named after him. I think he severely outclasses him on the ground. I think we see a first-round submission victory out of OSP as well. So it looks like we're not going to have a lot of competition starting off December. So far, we're agreeing with most of the fights that are happening. Before that, we got a fight between Montana De La Rosa and Talia Santos. Talia Santos just beat Molly McCain again in the ESPN Cater versus Ige fight. She did have a loss before that, but other than that, her record is relatively unblemished. Montana, on the other hand, just lost her last fight, but her last victory was against the person that Talia lost to. So that makes this fight slightly interesting in that aspect. Who do you got on this one, Don?
I don't really know either of these two ladies too well. By looks of the record, I would go with Talia.
Talia.
Yeah, I'd go with Talia. She just has a better record. She looks like an up and comer. Montana's fought some really good girls, but she lost to Mackenzie Dern, lost to who's that other girl she lost to? Cynthia Calvillo. She lost to Calvillo. She beat Rachel Ostovich, lost to Andrea Lee. Yeah, so I'll go with Talia on this one.
Just to be competitive, I think this is going to be a 3-round fight. I think it's going to be a split decision, and I'll take Montana in it. So I'm playing the game of Clue on this one. I'm trying to piece together the entire way this fight goes. Just looking at their records, a good amount of decisions, and also the mutual fight that they do have went to decision. One of them was a split, so it just feels like that's in the numbers. Do you know anything about Roman Dolidez and John Allen?
No.
I don't either. Do you want to just flip a coin, take a guess, or should we skip that?
I'll probably skip that one, man. I don't know the next fight either. I don't know these guys.
I do know who Masvar Ilanov is. I have been keeping track of his record. He's been a really, really fun to watch prospect out of Russia. Where was it that I was able to catch one of his fights not too long ago? He was on the Till vs. Whitaker card against Mike Grundy in the undercards. That was the last time I saw him, but I also got to see him in some of his M1 clips back in his training days of like 2017, I believe it was, 2018. I remember scouting him out as just potential future talent to look for, and man, is he not disappointing. He's really coming forward with some wins. So, I mean, if we were going to choose, I would choose him, but I would expect.
I'll choose the other guy. He
All
has
right.
a win over Darren Elkins. I'll go with Nate.
Yeah. Yeah, he just beat Darren the Damage Elkins in May, who I think is, maybe not in the top 15 ever, but he's definitely in the top 10 of worst tattoos in the UFC. I think we can.
Maybe top 5, brother. Maybe top 5.
I would put him in the top 2 for sure. But hey, he's committed to his name with a tattoo like that. Who gets a day job, right? So yeah, looks like we've broken down what we think are going to happen in the fights coming up. We got some UFC news going on as well. You got any news? Anything you want to discuss?
So it looks like Nate Diaz, his manager, saying he's going to return in 2021. 99.9% sure.
What? Whoa.
So we might see Nick Diaz.
Nick Diaz, okay. Ooh.
So we might see Nick Diaz return in the UFC.
Is his weight suspension finally up?
Apparently.
Wow, that's amazing. Finally. I hope they make some revisions, especially since Nevada is a legal state for recreation. What are they thinking? I got to meet Nick Diaz bouncing a bar back in 2015, I believe it was, 2014, and I got to shake his hand And I'm a big guy. And I felt like I stuck my hand inside a baseball glove. That dude has got some huge hands. That guy was built for fighting. Like, there's some people that you meet who are professional fighters that you just, with a shake of the hand, you're like, this guy could kick my ass. Like,
Was
bad.
this in LA or Hawaii?
This is in Hawaii. He was out in Maui vacationing, and I was bouncing a bar called the Tiki Lounge. And he popped in, took some pictures with everybody. And it's funny, when we took pictures, I was standing next to him. He's like, man, you're tall. And I was like, yeah, thanks, man. He's like, you should squat down a little bit. And I laughed, and I realized he wasn't joking. So I squatted down for the photo a little bit. You know, it doesn't look good for the image. He's the fighter. He's got to be the guy. Get it. So I did.
Hey.
And then I got a handshake, and man, I'll never forget. That was one of the handshakes where I'm like, I'm pretty sure he's touching his own thumb and pinky with my hand inside of it. It was, I never felt so safe.
Wow. And he fought at 155.
Yeah.
With Gomi, fought against Gomi. He had some lightweight fights, man.
Well, his walk around weight was somewhere around 180, but he's not a string bean. You know what I mean? He's tall and he's not thin. He's a filled out dude. He was intimidating for sure. And I'm no small guy. I'm sitting around modestly around 260 with 6'3". So standing next to him and making me feel small, that just lets you know in perspective how big the dude really is. Man, I'd love to see Nick Diaz fight again soon. Also,
I don't know who he'd fight though.
Right? I'm trying to. What weight class would he fight in now?
I would think 170.
170. Ooh, that's an interesting class for him to fight at too, because then
put him against Khamzat Chimaev.
I mean, not a bad idea. He did just lose his fight with Leon Edwards. Actually, that's what I was about to talk about. Leon Edwards, unfortunately, just tested positive for COVID and is out of the fight for December. And he's not only did he test positive, he's actually having a really rough go as far as how he's reacting to it, which is really unfortunate. First of all, I'm thoughts and prayers with Leon Edwards. I hope he recovers okay. But unfortunately, making a fight with Khamzat seems to be the curse. Nobody can stay healthy long enough to fight the guy. Neil Magny's stepping up again on social media. He's saying, hey, I can take the fight on short notice. Don't say no yet. Don't say no yet. But apparently they're already rescheduling the fight for potentially February. Yeah, that's going on with that. Man, we were this close to seeing Khamzat fight again too. So close. COVID's taken so much from us. But
it's taken so much, but it's given so much, right? I mean, we've seen some fights, we've seen some fighters come up that we never thought
and it's
would be about. But you know, Leon Edwards versus Khamzat, a good fight, but definitely favors Khamzat as far as styles go. Khamzat versus Neil Magny is not a good fight for Khamzat Chimaev. And I would pick Neil Magny on that fight. Neil Magny's just, I feel like he's a veteran. He always evolves. He's been at that top level. And I don't think Khamzat would be able to surprise him. And I think he'd have a lot harder time taking him down than Leon Edwards. And he's going to need to take Leon down because Leon's a beast on his feet.
Mm-hmm.
So Khamzat would have to take Leon down. But with Neil Magny, it's going to be a lot tougher to take Neil Magny down. And if you do, he has a much better ground game. He knows how to get up off the fence. One of Neil Magny's greatest strength is just getting up when he gets taken down and wearing people down. You know, you take him down, he gets up. You take him down, he gets up. And then he starts working on you. That's a tough fight for Khamzat. So I want to see the fight. For some reason, Khamzat doesn't want to fight Neil Magny. It's probably because he sees him as a threat.
I respectfully believe that Chimaev starches Neil in the first round if they fight. But I'm drunk on the Chimaev punch. I'm not gonna lie. I'm full steam ahead on this hype train. I'm ready to ride it all the way to the championship belt. I also did the same thing with Sugar Sean, and I got
And
off.
look what happened.
I got off on the next stop. I was like, ooh, sorry, my Chimaev train is actually leaving the station. I'm gonna be switching trains. And that's okay. In the fight world, you don't need as much loyalty as you do in, say, like the NFL world or the NBA world, where you stick with a team for 10 years if they're losing. In the fight world, man, this is a game of who you fought recently. As far as a fan, you're a fan of the sport first and an individual second. So make no
The thing
mistake.
about that too, dude, is that Hazmat needs a guy like Leon Edwards who has gaping holes in his game that he can exploit. Hazmat doesn't want to fight someone like Neil Magny, who's an underrated fighter, right? Neil Magny is a guy that we're always saying, like, man, one or two more, he's going to get a title shot, I can't even think of anyone who's starched Neil Magny. Neil Magny's last wins: Robbie Lawler, Anthony Martin, Zhailang Jing. He did okay. So he did get knocked out by Ponzinibbio. I'll give him that. We haven't seen Ponzinibbio in a while. He's an absolute animal. But before that, Neil Magny beat Craig White, Carlos Condit, Johnny Hendricks, Hector Lombard, Kevin Gastelum, Eric Silva. I mean, dude. So if Hazmat can get past a guy like Neil Magny, then we should be saying like he's at that top level.
That's what I'm saying, dog.
But Leon Edwards is a guy who has all that clout, but has those holes in his game, like the wrestling. I mean, there's no way that Leon Edwards can train in 8, 10, 12, 16 weeks to prepare for Hazmat's ground game. There's no possible way. He has to knock Hazmat out on the feet. But Neil Magny knows how to weather all that, and he's not afraid of getting taken down by Hazmat. He knows he can get up. It'll be interesting, man. I mean, I hope UFC is going to put someone else in with Hazmat, because I want to see that guy fight again.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I've seen enough to believe that he's something that we've never seen the likes of. Although that's yet to be seen until we put him against top tier talent. I think what he's shown thus far has been unprecedented. I truly do believe that he might be the future of the enterprise of the UFC. But hey, I smelled bacon and had tofu before and been tricked. You know what I mean? It's easy to fool. It's easy to fool me. I'm not gonna lie. I love hype trains. I'll ride them all the way out. There's no such thing as fan monogamy in MMA. You can be fans of multiple people simultaneously, and these people can fight. And that's your favorite fight, is to see two people that you're fans of fight. That's my favorite thing. But I do believe that Chimaev is the truth. I do believe that he might be the next coming of the Iceman, so to speak. I feel like he might call upon the energy and be able to get the energy into the sport again.
I'm still not convinced that he's of Khabib level, because when you talk about him, I'm thinking like Khabib, like a guy who's just unbeatable, who's on a tear, who no one could take him out. He hasn't been tested yet, man, and that's the truth of it. He just hasn't been tested. He's been paired up with opponents that he's been able to figure out, who aren't as well rounded as he is, and he just hasn't been tested. Leon Edwards is a great test, but Neil Magny, I think, for me as a hardcore would be the ultimate test for Hazmat, where I'd be like, okay, I'm wrong. This dude's a real deal.
And Leon, I feel like Leon Edwards might have been the same. Although, like you said, he does have a blaring hole in his game, much like, say, like a Masvidal or something similar to that, where there is a giant shortcoming on a certain side of the spectrum. Same could be said. I know that Meerschaert and Neil Magny are very different fighters, and yes, Magny wins the fight against Meerschaert every single day. Gerard does present some of the same dangers as Magny, and we saw Khamzat completely unafraid of those dangers. So who knows? Like it's one of those things that we've never seen anybody like Khamzat, or have we? Maybe he's just another one of these flash in the pan starter fighters that don't make it into the top 10 because once the talent level gets higher, they start to buckle. I don't see that. I've seen that a bunch. I don't see that with Khamzat. I see top 10, top 5 material all over that. And I think he honestly has a huge edge on Magny that we haven't seen just because of the fact that nobody's been able to last in the ring long enough to really show what kind of damage that kid can do the more time you give him. But we'll see. We'll see if they give it to Magny. We'll see if Magny's that guy. I'd love to see that fight. Regardless, I'm a fan of Magny's. I'd love to see that fight. Neil Magny's done some cool shit. So I'm a big fan of both. Also, finally, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Last piece of news, Yair Rodriguez was cryptically talked about in a most recent interview where they asked if he was going to get a fight. And I was just talking about him last time we had a podcast, how much I enjoy his style. But they were asking, is Yair Rodriguez going to fight again soon? And Dana looked to his person. He's like, we haven't announced it yet. Why haven't we? No, we can't talk about it. It's not our business. All right. And he looks back at the camera. He goes, yeah, he's not going to be fighting for a long time. Not with us. Not for a while. And like, do you want to talk about it? He's like, no, it's not our business. It's not for us to talk about. If he wants to talk about it, he can. Or if they want to talk about it, whatever. Didn't address who they was. And then the reporter was like, wait, so did he not accept the fight? And he's like, no, if he didn't accept the fight, that would be my business. It's not my business. What he's got going on is his business. Sounds to me like Yair Rodriguez got popped for steroids. It's just what it sounds like. When
I don't know. I mean, is this a Mexican mafia deal? I mean, is he part of the cartel? What's going on?
Who knows? He did talk about a third party though. And anytime the UFC talks about a third party, who's the only third party that matters between the UFC and fighters? It's always USADA or the Athletic State Nevada Commission. My guess is that he got popped for some type of illegal, because with the finality, he said he will not be fighting with us for a while. That just screams suspension in my head. I could be wrong. I could be overanalyzing it. But their reluctance to talk about it only drives the fact home for me. The fact that they're waiting for him to speak on it really says a lot, I feel like. Not necessarily a smoking gun, so to speak, but it doesn't bode well. Dana didn't look very happy talking about it. Did you get a chance to catch that interview clip?
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, so that's something to keep our eyes on. Perhaps Yair Rodriguez is being suspended soon, so don't get your hopes up. Don't buy his rookie card.
I'm still trying to figure out who Michael Chandler is supposed to fight next, because they're talking about how he has an opponent that's been accepted.
And he's in camp.
And he's in camp. He's ready. He's getting ready. Who is Michael Chandler going to fight?
Oh, it's Gaethje. It's Gaethje. When you look at the top of the list, there's very few people for them to give him, and most of them have been giving fights all around him. It's got to be Gaethje.
Well, there's also Dan Hooker in the mix too. I just was reading about Dan Hooker. He's been on a tear too. That's not really a fight that I care to see. I don't think Michael Chandler would really want that fight either. But a Gaethje fight, man.
I think it's Gaethje, because Dana White's been saying nothing but let's give him to the top. Let's throw the top at him and see where he lands. And he said that again in the recent interview. He's like, oh, we're giving him the top, the cream of the crop. And who's closer to the top than the person who just lost the most recent fight against Khabib? Dustin Poirier's already got a fight. Connor's already got a fight. All the other top fights except for Dan Hooker has a fight scheduled. Dan Hooker could be it too, because he hasn't really fought much in 2020, if at all. Did he? I don't really recall.
I don't think he has.
Yeah, he's been pretty not present for 2020. So that wouldn't be a surprising one either. That could be it. But my heart says Gaethje. My heart, I feel it. It says Gaethje. Man, do I want to see that fight. That's going to be a good one.
That's going to be such a great fight, man. I mean, if Gaethje fights Michael Chandler, and man, I'm just hoping Michael Chandler makes a statement in that fight. But if he doesn't, that fight's going to be freaking off the wall. Make sure you see that fight. If Gaethje's fighting Chandler, do not miss that fight.
If Chandler doesn't put up close to the performances that you've been getting me stoked on, Don, you will not hear the end of it from me. I will compare every hype job to Michael Chandler from there on out. But man, do I hope that he is what he says, what you say he is, because I do love a good hype. You know me, man. I'm ready to jump hype trains at a moment's notice. I'd love to see him open up shop and rip
he's
it.
a hype that he's a hype that has results, and he's a hype that is the type of fight where he's been putting on so many explosive fights in Bellator that people just haven't seen and haven't really followed. And now he's in the UFC. I think that he's going to put on a lot of the same fights, and he's going to try to make a statement. He's going to try to get the title shot immediately. And with a guy like Gaethje, if those two fight, I mean, dude, we're going to see high level wrestling. We're going to see high level stand up. Let's see, man. I don't know. You have Poirier. You have, the UFC could hit us with anything, and it could all be changed in a moment's notice. But if that fight goes down, man, we have to do a bet on that one. We have to do a big bet.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out something fun for that. All right. Anything else you want to talk about, Don?
All good, brother.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us for today's episode of Stoner vs. Stoner, episode 20. We made 20 episodes. That means we've done 20 weeks of shows, which means that we're almost at the halfway point for a full half year of shows. So thanks for supporting us, you guys. We've really come a long way. You can really see it by watching our first episode and then watching our current, just how far we've come in our personalities and coming out of our shells and figuring out our dynamic. If you want to check out our previous shows, make sure you check out our YouTube channel. You can check it out through the Facebook page that you're probably watching from now. Stoner vs. Stoner, of course, on everything. You can find me on social media at Chinobrah, ChinoBrah. That's on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all the mediums. That's the way that you find me. As well as Oculus, if you want to see stand-up comedy and virtual reality, friend me on there and I'll get you going. Don, how can our viewers and listeners find you?
You guys can find me at dstoner_LWJJ on Instagram, Don Stoner on Facebook. Yeah, thanks so much, guys. Apparently, Snoop Dogg's trying to start his own fight league. That's what one of our fans are commenting on. Snoop Dogg, this is not the business for you, brother.
Are you kidding me? Did you see his performance with the Mike Tyson thing? I thought he was great. I would love to see more Snoop Dogg fight leagues. The fact that he was commentating and then did better halftime performance than the guy that they hired, man, just a jack of all trades. Why don't you just throw him in the ring and let him punch a dude already?
He had an amazing, performance as far as his rapping goes and his musical stuff. But as far as the commentating, I mean, he's funny. Don't get me wrong. But that's the type of guy who just says so many random things where you just get lost in he's talking about, this looks like my two uncles fighting at a barbecue. And he kept going on and on with that whole spiel. This is Mike Tyson, bro. What are you talking
about? But I'm not going to lie. The second that halftime show started, and he's like, oh, yeah, all you people at home, you know what time it is. I was like, I'm going to smoke a bowl because Snoop Dogg told me to. Like, I'm not going to lie. It got me supercharged for the Tyson fight. But anyways, whatever happens with that, we'll cover it. We'll talk about it. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Stoner vs. Stoner. Enjoy the fights as always, and aloha.